Yeah, should we?
Yeah, just like move those weights then.
There we go. I've got the mic.
Everyone happy?
Yes.
Got a drink? You got a drink?
Oh, I've not got a drink. Oh, yes, please. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
We'll see how it goes. Well, as always, experimenting all the time.
You look beautiful too.
Always.
Thank you. I want to be. Actually, I'm not being seen. Okay. Is there anything we should know? Like a restriction? Yeah, exactly.
No, but just everyone, because we've got an online audience, I'd ask everyone to try and be quiet unless you're directed to talk, just because I want it to get very confusing for the online audience.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah, I think it might be at the smallest one it is on. Yeah. You can always filter. And if it's your one, I'm sure you can always take it off as well. In true panel show style.
They want me to enter a capture code and it's all like flashing, so it's like yes, more complicated every time, exactly. Okay, we're pretty much ready to go. Let me turn up mics. We should all be good. They should all be roughly there. Oh, don't like that at all. Why is that happening?
I'm Evie. It's like Ellie, but pronounced with a V. It's the one that I've kind of...
Can whoever is in control
can
let me in? I don't know why this got so much buzz on it. Hang on.
Lots of excitement
Yeah.
in the air.
Okay, join without computer audio. Turn on. Continue. Okay, it's looking good. I need to just change the background. Has anyone got to take control of the whole background? Okay, cool. I think there's no one else in the room at the moment. Is anyone trying to get in? Okay, that's the good thing about that is the good thing about these Zoom things. If no one's there, then you can just you know, take your time. Right, okay. Image downloads. Where the fuck has that gone to? Downloads. Okay, what's happened here? Downloads. Okay.
I like the image for this one with the hands on the fingers. It's quite disturbing, but it's quite nice.
Yeah, that is a work of art.
I was wondering if it was yours, Rick.
There we go. Okay, let's have a bit more of that. There we go. Oh, no, people can't see, so we have to have it like this. You can't see at all, so we have to have it even more. Well, something just fell off. Okay, right. So we are pretty much ready to go. We've got Amina Mishahi wanting to join. Let's do this. So we're ready to start. Let me just do my hair. There we go. That's me doing my hair. Marvelous hair. Right. Everyone ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to start this. We're going to kick this off. We'll see where we take this. Okay. So we will see. Yeah.
We could sing.
Yeah. Do 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 do. Oh.
A pacemaker.
This is Persian
Funk.
trance. This is
Oh.
via Berlin. It's actually made in Berlin, but from a very famous Persian song. We've got. You've not got a mic, so I don't know why you're trying to. Hello, Amina. You're our first customer for today, but we have got a lot of people around the table here in the studio. Maybe Rick could have a quick flick of the cameras just to show people. Hello. Can you hear us okay? Because
yes, I can. Hi.
we're still. This is a bit different because we've got a panel in the studio, and normally it's either online or live, but in this case, it's a bit of both, really.
Rightio. I thought I was late. Sorry, I thought it was starting at 4, so that's a relief. At least I'm on time.
No, it's you're in fact you're the very first person, and I should say that this series of Talkaoke sessions is all part of this thing called the listening channel. I don't know if you know about that. No,
I'm kind of a proper newbie, to be honest. I vaguely know what's going on, but I just thought I'd kind of
you
drop
probably
in
know,
and see.
you probably know more than us.
What am I doing?
Yeah, I'm sure
I'm
you.
just gonna pop my video off and mute myself for a minute, just because I've got to pop out and back in. So I'll be back.
Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, so I've got Amina there. We need to get a conversation going. I guess it's left to the people in the room. Has anyone got anything they want to kick off with? Any thoughts, comments, observations, interjections? Not really, probably a little bit. You can always grab another mic. I could fit you up with another mic, but it's kind of a bit late in the day now. But you can always just go over to, why don't you just sit with Patricia? Share it with Patricia as you if anything, you've shared more stuff with Patricia. Yeah. Okay. Hang on a sec, but hang on. First of all, I've got to work out which mic is which. So that is this one. So Patricia, just say what you were saying about being patriotic.
I said I don't mind at all people coming over and being next to me
Yeah.
in my territory because I got no patriotism in my blood whatsoever.
You've got no
No.
Okay, where do your loyalties lie?
And the fact that I'm a human being.
Yeah.
And that I'm a woman. And that there are lots of beautiful things around. I think beauty is important. Now, without sounding too hippie, I recognize this identity and all of that, but just say, just let people, we share a mic. It's a nice thing to do. This is as an idea, I think this is my point of view. But just to kick off the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, we got Katie in. Say hello, Katie. Katie, hello. Can you hear us okay? Hello, Katie. Well, I'll just sit on that one. She may still be joining. We're talking about, first of all, first question out of the box. Are you patriotic? Maybe we should go around on this one, and it's a good chance to get a mic test. We need a bit more of an online audience just to work out. Just to work out if we actually can be heard online. I think we can. But Evie, go on, talk to me.
I was thinking the last time that I was here, we were talking about trying to create a food for the street that where we are in Poplar.
Yeah.
And it made me think on the way here, I don't know whether I necessarily feel patriotic to a country, but I think maybe I feel quite patriotic about food. So whether that's,
What does that mean? What food do you feel patriotic to?
Sort of pie and mash, like a good pasty.
Yeah.
And I think I would defend that food to people. So I was wondering whether maybe sometimes you can have a bit of subconscious patriotism.
Okay, we've got a hello from Katie on the chat. Is your mic not working, Katie? Is that what's going on? Can you hear us okay? Let us know, because we're going a bit experimental here, so we're not quite sure.
Hello.
Oh, hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Okay. We're just talking about patriotism, but also what you're loyal to. So Patricia is loyal to being a human being and being a woman. Evie is loyal to, or somehow patriotic to, food, pie and mash. And that's where we've got to so far. That's it, basically. That's all we've done so far. You've just told us at the very beginning. Go on.
Can anyone give a description what loyal means in this case?
Loyal, okay.
Yeah.
What we do sometimes, Katie, is when someone asks a tricky question like that, we call it turning the mirror. And what we do, and we turn the mirror back, and I would ask you, I'm going to ask the rest of the people, don't worry, but I want to ask you first, what is loyal to you?
I have no idea. It's not a word I use in my daily language.
Yeah, it's true, actually, I don't really use it either. Okay,
to be really honest, the reason I'm asking is because I can think of a few meanings I've heard of, but but they usually depend on a context.
Yeah, good point.
Like, for example, military people, loyalty may mean one thing.
Yeah.
For religious, something else. For a kid in the kindergarten, again, something else in regards to their friends. So it's
okay. Well, I'm going to go around. We've got a few people in the table in the studio here, so we're going to ask some of these people in the studio. What does loyal mean to you? Does anyone want to answer? Anyone care to answer that? Well, come over and stand by or sit by a microphone. We've got. Okay. Well, that is it. The answer. Ian, come in on this one. What's your view on it? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay, so loyalty and patriotism doesn't mean beating other people up. We've got a new face here, so we just want to say hello to Brian E. Hello, welcome. At the moment, we're talking about loyalty. It doesn't mean anything or that much to Katie. For Ian, it's something about Queen's Park Rangers. I'm not going to go too far into that. But Margot, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was reading recently about, the kind of the foreigners living in a country. It wasn't specify which country, but if you're a foreigner living in another country, people are worried that if it comes to it, your loyalty will lie with your native country. So if shit hits the fan, you will not, like, if shit hit the fan, according to this definition I was reading, I would align myself with Poland, not with the UK. Then I'm not the best British citizen there can be, because in an extreme situation, I will be not with Britain. I'll probably default to Poland.
Okay. I mean, what is shit hitting the fan in that case? A war. A war.
I think a war.
Yeah.
A big one.
Okay, a war. Okay. Are we shaping up for a war? Is that what's going on? Is that why all this chat about patriotism is coming? And how do we feel about being in a war?
But can I just raise a question before that?
Yeah, go on, yeah.
Because I love the example about in regards to the countries. But then my question is, what if, let's say, a country a person is loyal to does something which the same person thinks is morally wrong?
Yeah.
Is loyalty still sticking to that view, even though you disagree? Or loyalty is more to certain principles than to countries?
Okay, is it loyalty to a principle rather than the country? What do people think? And has your country done anything that you disagree with? Anybody? Okay, so quite a lot. Let's get some concrete examples here. Has anyone? We've got different people from different countries, and we've got even people logging in from different countries, I see here as well. Has your country done anything kind of shameful? We've got Milda coming in as well. So yeah, I mean, what do people think about this? Has your country done anything which you really disagree with, or do you prefer not to think about that?
Yes.
Yeah, go on then. Go on then.
I don't mean to hog the conversation, but I recently came back from my home country,
Mm.
and what's happening there
Which is where?
Which is Poland.
Right.
Surprise to maybe some people, or not at all.
Mm.
And the thing is that in Poland, they've introduced these LGBT-free zones.
Yeah.
And majority of people are Catholic. So I've got a problem with both of these things, which doesn't, I feel like that doesn't really fit into the patriotic definition that's currently trending in my country. So that's
What doesn't fit in?
You know, somebody who is not, you know, if you support LGBT, then that makes you a really bad Pole, bad patriot.
Yeah.
And if you are not Catholic, then A, you're going to go to hell, and B, you're a bad patriot.
Is there any country where supporting LGBT is patriotic? Is it patriotic in the UK? What do other people think? Yeah, go on, Evie.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if my mic's going to work.
Yeah, I think it is working. It's just
brilliant,
not going through the amplifier. Can those people online just give us a little bit of feedback here? And I don't mean like howling feedback. Can you hear the mic okay? No?
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, we need to know. What? Can you hear Evie?
Can you hear me?
We can't hear you at all, to be honest, but, you know.
I can hear you really clearly, Mikey, but when other people around the table speak, they're a bit too quiet to hear.
Okay, well, let me just readjust things. Okay, I'm going to turn all of this up. I can see what's going on here now. I forgot to change the gain on this, so let's just do it like that. How about now? Evie, say something?
I was going to say that maybe we're talking about LGBT and Britain. I'm just going to pause now if people can hear me.
Is that good?
No, it's the opposite. Now we can't hardly hear you, Mikey. And
Okay, well,
yeah.
Okay. How about now? Go on, Evie, say something.
The fact that Pride has become so commercialised in the UK, I think might be an interesting one where it's almost swung the other way, but maybe not to an extent where it's actually saying anything meaningful.
How about that, Bryony? Was that a good sound level? No?
Still, she's now a bit too loud and you're super quiet, Mikey.
Okay, I'll turn myself up and turn Evie down. Okay, so what she was basically saying, it probably sounded like... but what Evie was actually saying is pride in the UK almost becoming a kind of matter of patriotism because it's become so commercial. What do people think? What about gay pride in the UK? Has it kind of gone the other way to Poland where they kind of, you know, instead of there being a bunch of like pink-skinned people with shaved heads shouting abuse, you've got corporations rushing to paint their rainbows all over the street. So what do people think about that? Is that a good thing that the corporations are getting so interested in pride?
It's the pink pound.
The pink pound.
The pink pound. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's any kind of market that can be abused for whatever reason. If people can't pull themselves into different groups, and there is an opportunity to sell that group a particular thing, or to apply to them, appeal to them for a certain thing, that is their right anyway. Then people will manage over it.
Okay, so it's just wherever people can see a business, they will actually. But all right, well, in a way that leads on to the question: what about patriotism and business? How do those things fit together?
Well, again, try not to hog the thing, but you'll find that most rich people have got holdings overseas. So I can only think that their patriotism is on a worldwide scale, especially little islands off the shore of other islands.
So this idea of like a citizen of the world applies more possibly to rich people. We've got Milda here. You've not said much. Just say hello. You may not have anything to say at this point, but let's just get a shout from you. Can we hear? Are you listening? I don't know. Later then. What do people think about this then? Is it the richer people are more of a global outlook. You said, Patricia, that you're got more of a global outlook. Is that because you're rich?
Yeah, I'm so rich, Jack. Like that. I think those things are kind of runs in a different parallel universe. It's nothing to do with anything. I mean, I think one thing is you are born in a place and then somehow you inherit your identity has something to do with that place, and then being loyal to that place is not wrong, but it's not wrong to be loyal to any place. You think, but patriotism is quite a complicated idea for me to swallow. It implies that you are incredibly proud of your country and you always defend the principle of your country, which is nice. But sometimes I think the idea of belonging to one place, just one place, is for me, I think is a bit restrictive. As soon you grow into an adult, you understand that life is quite out there everywhere. So I think rich people they go along because they can decide where to spin around. But mentally, I'm very rich.
You're mentally rich. Okay.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. I feel mentally rich as well. But that's because I guess I've got a very rewarding job. Looks like we've lost Milda and we've lost Amina as well. Hopefully they'll be back soon. Anyway, if anyone online there, if you are leaving, just give us a final thought before you go. It's always good to get that kind of thing going on. Okay, so we're talking about, in a way, should wealth be measured in terms of money? Margot?
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
More or less.
Yes.
Woo! Thanks, Katie. Thumbs up. Yeah, I'm really interested in this kind of commercial / patriotic kind of spiritual crossover, because I think that patriotism recently has been rebranded, and I'm not sure if it's always been rebranded. Does it get a kind of rebrand every say 50 years or something? I haven't been around for all that long, but I feel like, for instance, in Poland there's a lot of patriotic kind of fashion. There's like people wearing t-shirts with like white and red colors, not for Indonesia, but like for Poland. And then like eagles.
Not for Budvar as well, which is a current drink on the table.
In a similar way that where people wear like slogans on their t-shirts, like "This is what feminist looks like" or whatever like this. And I feel like like maybe the subject for the next conversation, which is going to be about identity in 2 weeks' time, but I feel like patriotism is just like another commercial thing. So I agree with Ian in a way. It's a pink pound. It's I don't know, St. George's pound. I don't know what you would call it in that context.
So the Red Cross pound.
Yeah, Red Cross.
Yeah.
But I also wonder whether patriotism, like, how do different generations view patriotism? What did that mean like 50 years ago? What does it mean now? And what did patriotism mean, I don't know, 20 years ago? I'd be interested.
Okay, I mean, has patriotism changed? Katie, come in on this one.
Yeah. Okay, this one was very interesting point. And I actually did a tiny bit of reading just before the talk, what patriotism is in the first place.
Yeah.
And I found that it's basically a love of or loyalty or whatever towards a certain place. And in the concept itself, I don't see anything wrong per se. I think that we might have had a wrong perspective on it for a really long time. I'm not sure how many of you have heard that it has been now published that we have detected life on Venus, where there shouldn't have been any. However, most likely the galaxy is forming with life.
Yeah.
That's what scientists are pretty much open by now about. And I think we need to change the perspective. I think now we come towards a time when patriotism should be kind of a global concept, because we have these new problems like the virus, like the climate change, like all of those things, which no single country can fix.
Yeah.
And it's something which crosses the borders. It doesn't really matter where you are.
So we should really be looking at a global...
And if we would actually be patriotic towards this planet, and towards the, I mean, our diversity is also part of that planet, just as we are. And if we actually accepted it instead of trying to fight it, I think the current infighting, which almost, I mean, many people almost confuse patriotism and nationalism in some contexts. I think it's a remnant of older times when, I mean, humans started living in very small tribes and like families, tribes, and it grew and grew and grew as the time progressed. So I'm pretty sure that now is a time for us facing all of these issues to pretty much grow to the next level.
Okay, so we've been fighting each other to begin with, but now we're fighting global things. Like
Yes.
viruses and climate change, and that, in a way, calls for a kind of global patriotism.
It's not a subject where you can find a single person or a country and blame them.
Yeah.
Like usually nationalism tries to find some fault with another country to prove that they're better in that cases. And patriotism kind of goes like, okay, it does the same thing, but not with countries, but with certain cultures instead.
Does that mean then we're now saying we're better than viruses and we're better than fossil fuels and stuff like that?
Well, maybe that's something we need to rethink as well, because, I mean, for one thing, whatever life on Venus is, it's not like here on Earth. Because carbon-based life couldn't exist there, according to what we know. So it would have to be silicon-based life, which we have no clue what it would look like.
Can I just point out that I have never met a nice Venetian in my life? Never. They don't buy their rounds.
Yeah.
You know, you live next door to one. There's always trouble. They're always calling the intergalactic police on you. You know, there's so much going on.
Okay, so you've not got a good reputation. The whatever you call them, the Venusians. Bryony, come in on this one.
Come in from Wales. I feel like patriotism. Yeah, I feel like I confuse patriotism and nationalism because it feels like loyalty to your country. It's like a country as a unit of identity that has some cohesion to it. And I personally feel a lot of discohesion, right? And in both countries, there's a lot of polarization. Like I think Brexit polarized Britain, Trump reflected American polarization. There's so many groups within each. It's very hard to like, I don't know, have a like to even think of patriotism as a thing. And then I guess the second thing is last night I was talking to a friend from California. And the last couple of nights I've invented a new word, Californian friends, because California's on fire. And this word, I've got to talk to my mum because she's a linguist. I don't know if it's like transmorphography or transmorphication or to transmorph, like humanity organized around semi-stable ecology, like London grew in London for certain reasons, New York grew in New York for certain reasons, San Francisco Bay Area grew there for certain reasons, and then culture and commerce and people, we shaped ourselves around those centers. But like London's going to flood, New York's going to flood, San Francisco area is on fire. What we're seeing this century is a kind of unprecedentedly fast need for quite a lot of migration. And I start looking at the map of the world and I look at these big bits of like Russia and Canada and go like, oh, that starts to look pretty good when various areas are running out of fire and running out of water and on fire or what have you. So like, and some people are starting to talk like beyond the nation state. So it's like, sorry, I can't even remember the word. What's the word? Patriotism. Yeah. Sounds a lot like patriarchy, doesn't it? What's that?
Are they linked? That's the question. Could you have a matriarchal patriotism, or would it be matriotism?
A matriotism.
Yeah.
What would be a patriotism?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it fits in the 21st century.
Okay, I guess that's the. I sort of feel like you just cut yourself off in mid-sentence there, but I'm taking that as the end of your point. So there's lots of things there. There's kind of global centres that are very much vulnerable to flooding and fire, and probably terrorist incidents as well. Let's throw that one in there. And the great swathes of steppes in Russia and the Canadian, whatever you call it, wilderness is the next place where huge numbers of humans are going to migrate to. What about also the point about patriotism, patriarchy, matriarchy? It's up to you to decide where you want to go to here. I'm just going to also put another call out to Milda. Say hello if you can. Let us know if you can hear us. Don't necessarily need to come in on the comment at this point, but it'd be nice to know if you can hear us and we can hear you. Maybe later. Right, so Evie, come on.
I was thinking that what Brian, you said about that we're going to face a lot of mass migration or immigration in the next century. I wonder if for maybe I can think about it for me personally, but for lots of other people, maybe that's the point in your life where you actually have to face being patriotic, because if you've always lived mostly in your own country for extended periods of time, maybe it doesn't become important to you, but only when you go to a new place, that's the point at which you maybe think more fondly of where you're from, or you defend the place you're from to others who might not understand it. So I wonder if it will become more important to us.
Well, let's ask the people that have sort of moved from one country to another. I feel like there might be a few on this call. Do you feel more fondly towards the country that you've left now that you've gone? And that goes out to anyone that's moved. Ian?
I used to live in central London.
Okay.
Now I live in East London. And the culture is totally different. I do speak fondly of places like St Paul's Cathedral, and I remember them with great affection. But I'm trying to fit in with the local culture now, and I think I'm making quite a good job of it.
Okay. So, I mean, do you miss central London?
What struck me about all this is that there is comfort in the familiar. So it's very easy to be around people who you understand because you shared their roots, right? But I am an internationalist as well, so I welcome people come to they brighten my life. People from Poland, people from wherever, they give me substance to my life because I've never been to Poland.
Yep.
But I will guarantee that my Muslim neighbour, with whom I share very little, I share a lot because we're living in the same place now.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's important. I'm loyal to people rather than ideas and flags. You know, and what I'm proud of when it comes to Britain is people like the Chartists, people like the Levellers, people that went on strike, like the Match Girls, that kind of thing, who went on strike for what they believe in. And if that's a fundamental idea, then I welcome people that are fighting in Belarus, in Poland. I mean, Lech Walesa, that kind of thing was a childhood hero of mine when in Poland, you know. So yeah, I mean, I just want to make that clear because I'm probably coming across as a complete nationalist.
But it's what we attach to this idea of nationalism, really, isn't it? Well, anyone else want to chime in here?
Yeah.
Go on, go on.
I'm Italian and I lived in Italy, different parts of Italy, complex because you're born in a place and then you move somewhere else. It's very complicated. It's a bit like your idea. And for 29 years, and then I moved to London 25 years ago. So I lived 25 years here, and I got. I don't think. What I'm saying, I love my country in many ways. Food is one thing, but as well there is an aspect of the way Italian people are, which I love, and the landscape and blah blah blah, and the history and all that. But I grew to love this country because I felt a lot. It's not easy to move in and reset your life in a complete from scratch in a new place, but then somehow you get to understand the pop culture, the Steve Lip, all of that, or you know, all those things which are kind of cliche, and then you embrace them because you know, if you want to really understand the place, you have to really embrace the way of living, and then you got these two kind of thing going on, and this I'm happy there is no war going on in Italy. But what I'm saying,
do in that circumstance if there was a war between?
I don't know. I might go to Switzerland.
I'll be right behind you.
No, but what I'm saying is like you really feel like I really feel like, for instance, what's going on in the latest year. I'm talking about from Brexit onwards and the election and all that. I feel. Besides, I never wasn't able to vote for any of those things. But I feel totally, you know, as if I feel British, but which I probably. People tell me, "Oh, you're not British, go away." But you know what I mean? You feel like, yeah, it's very. I don't know why. What's wrong with being able to love different things? Yeah, is it wrong? You know? Yeah.
Do you have to all put it all into one country?
Yeah, that's
or even one thing? And there's also the question about what you love about a country. Country's got a lot of stuff in it.
And as well, you get to know people. I really know a lot of people here because of the short time I've been living here, and I love some of them to bits. I don't know. You know what I mean? You get involved with a place because you are human.
Okay, so it's about being involved. Come on, Margot, throw it in there.
No, it's interesting because I think this year is the year when I have been living in Poland exactly the same amount of time as I've been living in England. And it's just 18 years. Which is unbelievable. I can't believe this. I literally can't believe this. 18 years. So
9 years in each country.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Because I'm 18 right now. It was my 18th birthday last week.
Yeah.
I'm 21 actually, but so the thing is that it really, like, I didn't think about it. My boyfriend picked up on it, and then I just thought, wow. I mean, do I need to like make some choices? Do I whatever? But I feel like very similar to you, Patricia. It's like like I live here now. I feel British as well in some ways because modern Britain is Britain of all these different peoples living together. We'll see how that goes in months' time. But you know, but I think that's true for all the other countries because borders are so open now. But we say that because we've got the privilege of being able to travel from country to country on a not too bad flight. And there's so many people who, you know, who don't have that luxury. They have to flee the country they love because there's, because there's a war. And that is,
I've just noticed this message. Is that a recent message about my face mic? Or
I've given up.
It should be okay. It should be okay. Turn it.
I don't know how's it, Katie? Are you at home as well?
What do you think?
Well, I got software on my computer so I can make anyone loud for myself. Sorry. Yes, I'm actually do sound fairly quiet, but
Me?
I manage.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, the shirt is loud at least.
Hey.
what about now?
How about that? Anyway.
Good morning.
How long have you been waiting to do that?
Since this
Yeah.
morning.
Well, it's not going to be the last time you hear that. Natalie, you've not said much so far. Any comments on any of the conjectures so far?
Well, I was sort of listening to what Patricia was saying, and yeah, I agree that patriotism, of course there are people that are very loyal to the country that they're in, but personally I don't feel that very much. Again, it's more about, you know, the people that you interact with. As you said, there are people in this country you love and those that you really don't like very much, but that can be said for any place you go. And so it's, personally, I don't want to put anyone else down who does feel very patriotic to the UK, but personally, it wouldn't make much sense to me.
What about the idea that we've just made up on the spot, matriotism?
Matriotism.
How do you feel about matriotism? Could that work better?
Well, if it was if I may chip in, if it was kind of the way to look at on a more larger scale. Whereas now, for example, people who are patriotic in Britain, some of them, I'm sure, enjoy the diversity, and for them being patriotic is accepting that diversity. For example, if they live in London or somewhere. And like for each person, it may mean a different thing, but maybe instead of looking for which place is better, we should try to figure out which kind of some standards or moral norms or something like that is better, and why. Okay, because I found that once the borders in Europe opened, it wasn't that everyone would flock to one particular place. People started moving at first because of financial reasons, but later, at least most of my friends, they moved mostly for cultural reasons. They moved to some place because they like people there, they like atmosphere there. And sometimes they had to accept some things they didn't agree with, and they got used to it. Sometimes they didn't, and they went back. But I found that it becomes kind of internal battle for a lot of people when they have to figure out, sooner or later, everyone comes across a time when they don't agree with something their country does. And if it gets so bad that they decide to leave, then again, I think that the whole world now is like people in the world are moving towards places where they feel safer and more comfortable.
Okay, so in a way it's a kind of sort of filtration where you get filtered to the place that you actually like to be. Hello, Milda. Hello, Kane. Hello. We're talking at the moment. We're talking about patriotism, but then we've come up with this new concept, matriotism. But then I feel like Katie's got this idea of like, I don't know what to call it, culturatism, where you're kind of like, it's a cultural loyalty to a particular kind of culture as well. So if any of the new people in here want to say
maybe
something,
that could fit in matriotism.
Yeah, exactly. Is the culture a cultural loyalty? Is that matriotism?
Or maybe philosophical loyalty.
Yeah, yeah.
More like.
New people, have you got any answers to any of this?
Yeah, I think I did. Sorry about very loud. No. Is it better now?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. First time. Okay, my opinion, when you are like how you exactly said before, like connected to your country too much, it causes open-mindedness. Before I was very scared to leave my country. Yeah. And now I understand that it actually was worth it. Yeah. To see how it is life in other countries. Yeah. Because, you know, it's very hard to say how it's gonna be in other country when you visit that country for, let's say, a month. Yeah. And you was before against it, and when you live long enough, you see that it's not that bad. It opens your mind. Actually, you are getting more open for some ideas, some deeper understanding.
What were the unexpected things about moving to London that you didn't expect?
That this country, I will love it so much. These various people, different races. I love it so much. I every day so happy to leave home and see what's waiting for me out there.
Okay, so there's definitely a point there. We're moving to another country, we learn a lot, I suppose. Margaret, you've had your hand up for a while, so do you want to come in? Kane as well, I noticed you just put your hand up, but we'll go to Margot first.
I'm just thinking, because I'm actually quite torn and quite in two minds about this whole patriotism, because when we were preparing for this session some time ago, I was showing Mikey some memes from Polish popular culture, like juxtaposing like contemporary men in like narrow trousers and kind of like quite metrosexual looking men, and the real hardcore soldiers, and with the caption, who would you trust in defending your country? And I think, I mean, there's lots of things going on there, but I think there's a really good point to be had about, you know, we are fortunate enough not to have to, you know, escape war. I'm going to come back to war because I think that's how a lot of the talk about patriotism and nationalism is framed, like as if we're under threat. And then back in the day, there was a real war, and young men had to go and fight it, and like there were real horrible things happening. And Polish borders, for one, you know, they have been moving all the time. People literally, they could not continue living their lives unless they were living in a free country. Right now, I feel like we're just completely, that is just like some kind of nationalistic concept. But for these people, it was real. And of course, nothing was black and white, not always. So I just wonder, like, are we just like really just relaxed because we live in relatively stable countries, stable economies and borderlines? We know what's what. So now we can be like, oh no, but let's just open up and that kind of stuff. Would you die for your country? Was my question to everyone.
Well, I'm going to turn the mirror on you. Would you die for your country?
Which one?
Or half die for each country?
I would die for the thing that I'm passionate about. I don't know if right now the threat would need to be like really real for me. But I would, yeah, I would die for my country.
Okay.
I would be shot at the deserter.
You would be shot at the deserter.
I'll get there and I'll be so scared I'll be running the other way.
Yeah.
It's all very well to glorify war as a defence of something that you believe in, but as we all know, war is hell. And the image that always strikes me is the image of Indian soldiers rocking up on the beaches of France to fight for Britain against Germany in France. Now, if you want the epitome of confusion as to what you're fighting for, that's got to be it, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know? And obviously be persecuted for doing that in the first place because you're from India.
So you're not even thanked for being an Indian
Absolutely,
soldier
yeah.
fighting
We
for
cut
Britain.
your pension later on like we did with the Gurkhas.
Okay. Kane, you wanted to say something for a while. Chime in on this one, and at the same time, Margot. Oh, as Evie.
Yeah, and that's
Okay, so we've got some other points. Well, let's get Kane in. He's been waiting here. He's not said anything. We could even just test the channel. Do you know what I mean? And my glass is empty, but I don't have that. I'm not Mr. Tickle. Go on, Kane. Talk to me.
I guess I would firstly, just to explain the background, it's Rosh Hashanah, that's a shofar.
Okay.
It's the Jewish New Year today. So that is the ram's horn that you ceremonially blow, that someone ceremonially blows on Rosh Hashanah.
How do you say Happy New Year in Hebrew?
You say Shana Tova.
Shana Tova to you.
Thank you very much. And you eat apples with honey.
Yeah.
I think kind of coming back to this point, I think I'd die for London, but I wouldn't die for my country.
Okay, you die for London, for the underground.
For the underground. And I guess that is part, like, you know, coming from, you know, on my mum's side, a Jewish family, Eastern European, settled here in the kind of interwar period. I think the thing that I've always really liked about London, having grown up here, is the kind of mix and layers of different communities, which you don't, it feels you don't have as much in the rest of the UK, that can feel a little bit like a monoculture at times. I know that's, you know, there's pockets, and, you know, there is the diversity in other urban areas, but when you go to the countryside, it can be sort of everyone looks the same. I think there was another point, you know, the other thing that I felt is, having lived, you know, I've spent some time in Uganda, and also lived for a little period in Swaziland. And I think what was really important was that what you can easily fall, and it's the thing that you don't have in London, is you can easily fall into this thing of kind of just living with your clique. You know, living amongst and with the expat community. And I think that's the really dangerous thing as well. I think it is really important that you do, you know, that there is mixing and dialogue at some level, and that it was really important going to those places and just sort of deliberately trying to maybe step away from that group, because it can feel really comfortable and really easy, you know, especially if you have language barriers that prevent you from.
So in a way, you learn more when you. I mean, do we have this kind of? You talked about the diversity. Is there a sort of, in a way, a word? We've got patriotism, but is there a word for this kind of pride in diversity?
I'm not sure.
Is it? Are we back to the matriotism, or can we come up with something better?
But isn't it diversity itself? Isn't that the word that celebrates the deed, as it were?
I was thinking the same for multiculturalism as well. Like usually when people say it, they mean it with a, they say it in a, with a like a worthy, or it's a good thing, or it's. So maybe that could be the word. I don't know.
Okay. Nasa, you were going to say something?
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that is it Kane who said that he'd probably die for London, but not for the UK as a whole. Because you know, with Brexit and stuff, you hear people suggesting that London should be its own country, because its views are quite different from the rest of the UK in certain aspects. And there are some people that would say that's not very patriotic, and that you know, you can't pick and choose what part of the country your loyalty lies with. So yeah, that's.
Would you die for London?
Ooh.
For the UK?
Yeah. I mean, London, not West London anyway. Yeah.
Not to die is good.
Yeah. Okay.
To die isn't very good.
Okay, so we've got some new faces as well. I just want to say hello to David over there. Hello. Just test your sound as well, because we've got a complicated setup.
Oh yes, my sound. Hello. My sound should be working fine.
Yeah.
We are all in a multicultural society, and basically we learned that at school, but basically, hopefully, it will get real at some point. Basically, the real family sharing power and basically, yeah.
I mean,
somehow we are on the verge of like taking over, if I can say like that.
I mean, you missed it, but a lot of people earlier on were saying that, you know, that in a way we've grown out of our countries and we've got to have this kind of almost global patriotism.
Yeah, basically it's not .com anymore, it's .global. GLB.
What was that?
Instead of www.talkaoke.com, it will be it will be anything 111.talkaoke.glb as global.
Okay, so a global. We've got to go global. So yeah, okay. Talkaoke.global. Margot.
I was reading on the news that apparently Donald Trump wants to bring in nationalist education around patriotism and nationalist national values. Sorry, just get that right. And in a way, I want to say anything that comes from Donald Trump, I just have no time for. But
yeah.
But I think teaching people how to be a good citizen and know the national heritage of the country, I think it's important in a historical context. And I was just humming the other day, and it's so funny because I learned it as a child, but like some of the really patriotic Polish songs associated with like Fight for Independence, or the first unofficial national anthem, which is about Virgin Mary. Something it's a beautiful choral piece of work from the medieval times, and like I mean, I don't know, what is people's like knowledge of their like national heritage? Because I think once you start knowing it, then you know, I think it's much tougher to say, oh, I just believe in diversity. It's
Why?
not because I think believing diversity, that kind of, it sounds just a bit like, I don't know.
I guess you can recognize your uniqueness first, from basically where you come from, and basically after that you can recognize other uniqueness. So basically somehow the apprentissage of getting like diversity is also knowing where you're coming from. So basically all the nationalist conversations is normal things. I will say it's normal things. It's part of what we are.
Where are you from, David?
Where am I from?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit of a mixed background.
Yeah.
Where I'm from, immigrant family from Tunisia to France.
Yeah.
From basically, my family was like a kind of expulsed Jewish family from Tunisia. So basically, the Jewish family wasn't when they kind of like from. My family was like in the French protectorate, and basically when the French protectorate was overthrown by the local community, let's call it like that, the Jewish wasn't allowed to stay. So somehow they were thrown away. So my grandfather is like the things like basically my grandparents arrived in Marseille on a boat on a snowy day. They never saw snow before, and basically they moved up to Paris. And they didn't stay in Marseille. They moved up to Paris, and basically my mom. They moved also on medical grounds. My mom was sick. She was diabetic. She couldn't be treated in Tunisia. She wasn't at all on the priority list. So basically somehow it was like part of the movement to go to France. So officially they move on medical ground. So yeah, and my mom found my dad on some kind of Jewish workshop to basically go and settle in Israel. My dad is a Catholic, but he saw the light when he was like teenager. So basically he converted to Judaism when he was like 14 years old. And so they had the idea of going to a kibbutz and basically live in a kibbutz, except that basically the kibbutz will not accept sick people. So basically the treatment from my mom will not be accepted in a kibbutz. So they will have to pay them themselves. So they didn't do that. So my dad still wanted to be a good Jew. So he wanted to be part of going in the army in Israel. And basically my mom couldn't handle that. So basically they separate. And basically that was when I was 2 years old. And basically I just grew in a multicultural Paris, kind of stuff like that.
Wow, that is a story. I
And I
wasn't
moved
expecting
to
that
London
at all. But, that is a great story. Kane, you've got your hand up.
I think my issue with the word patriotism and how patriotism is used is really, and taking from like David's story, from my story, probably from many of the stories around this table, is that our sense of identity is often quite complex. And the majority of people living in the UK, their relationship to the country, how they came to the country, as with so many countries, as with Poland, that me and Margot just come back from recently, is that actually most countries are often melting pots. And I think it's the issue when you deny that, when there is some sense of like, there is, I guess, a kind of purity of who is the ideal person that should be living here, who is the kind of, I guess, original group that lives here, and defending that perceived group, even if it sort of turns out to be absolute bullshit. I mean, there was a really, really good article I read recently about a Hungarian far right leader who then found out that his family that he was Jewish, that his family was Jewish, and he wasn't aware of that, and it made him very move away from the far right, fortunately.
Gosh, that's so unfortunate.
Yeah, but it's that thing of like, that, and then there are complicated things like, take for example my mum's family surname, my mum's maiden name, which is Rutman, which has just been, it's an adaptation of Rutschman, and that's it's been anglicized so that it is easier to kind of pass that you were English.
The royal family.
Yeah.
They've really changed it up there with the royal family.
Yeah. Anyway, we've got another new face to the table. We've got Joel. Just want to say welcome, Joel. Hello. But I see Bryony, you've got your hand up. So do you want to just chip in at this point?
Yeah. Oh, you've all really got me thinking, and I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm thinking about Wales right now, actually, and I was speaking to a woman this morning who's I was born here, and yet I'll never going to be seen as a local, and to the point where she and her husband tried to buy their first house, having moved to Brighton and then moved back to Wales, and the estate agent said, "Oh no, we don't have anything here for you," meaning that she was an English newcomer. And it's interesting, when you move to Wales, Welsh people who are kind of I don't know, courageous enough will say to you, "Hey, look, be aware into a place that has an intact indigenous culture that's had coherence for like 8,000 years. And it has its own language, and it has its own rituals and songs and things involving horses' skulls and blah blah blah, and it's in some kind of danger from this kind of general global culture, you know."
Yeah.
And
so it's not just the English, it's the...
Then the English.
Yeah.
So you want to
Me,
talk about
the English are right.
Yeah.
Well, there's
the
actually
the Welsh have
fair
sat in
amount.
that ages, haven't they? From
I'm going to say,
England.
Ian, let's just get the rest of
Indeed.
Bryony's point, and then go on,
Being
Bryony.
Well, there's quite a lot of hostility towards English here, and so I suppose I personally really don't know how to deal with that. Like, do I respect it and leave from that I'm here, or do I feel need to like learn how to diverse? But that thing it's trying to protect is almost like this quite old-fashioned version of culture where people and place and language and ritual and song and all these things are integrated in a place and are very, very distinct.
Okay, so it's kind of old-fashioned, but it's kind of got this...
I heard that basically Wales is the epicenter of England, because basically they never been invaded. So there is place in Wales who are still like the roots of the English territory.
Yeah.
So I guess what you're saying, David, is that the Welsh language was the original language of the British Isles.
Maybe.
Yeah, possibly.
Maybe.
Ian, you wanted to say something?
I was just talking about how the Welsh are probably the unknown persecuted people of the islands of Britain, because we stole their royal family. When Prince Charles is the Prince of Wales, where did that come from?
Yeah.
You know, and they have their own identity. My best friend at university was a Devonian separatist.
Right.
And very, very keen on that. And in many ways it was laughable, because you can't take it, but it was serious to him. So we're now sort of talking about the Welsh, and it's serious to them. But I dare say there's not been a lot of Welsh terrorism recently, has there? You know? I don't know. I think it's the unseen culture, theft of culture, and then the frowning on the fact that, God, people in Wales, they speak Welsh. What's going on there? You know, I can't understand the thing they're saying when I go to Wales. I just think it's kind of overlooked. I don't want to overplay it, but it's kind of overlooked.
I mean, what about this idea of theft of culture? Because I think that's a really interesting point. You know, can culture actually be stolen? And what does that look like?
Adapted, at least adapted from basically every culture would be basically have their like a spice of the territory. Especially with the Jewish people, from basically, I think it's the most morphic religion you can have. I don't know, maybe, I don't know. From basically everybody do their little sauce. It's the same word, but basically you have the little spice of the area.
Okay.
Basically that's basically taking the general culture and basically putting it back to your local things. I guess it happened with everything.
Okay, well, so what do we think? We've got Joel as well, new face. We're talking about, can you steal culture, Joel? That's a tough one to bring you in on.
I think you can reappropriate culture and take it and move it to different areas. But look at the British Museum; it's full of culture artifacts. So you can steal cultural artifacts, and maybe call it your own in a way. I don't know.
I mean, the British Museum is kind of full of stuff from all around the world.
Yeah, and I've heard they're now obliged to return some of them because it was stolen. That was stolen. But I mean, yeah, the British identity is a tough one to kind of. I mean, every expression of nationalism that I've been aware of has always been in the negative. I've never seen a good response to nationalism, to an idea of national identity that's kind of, that I thought was a positive, had a positive effect. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, well, let's find out what other people got. Ian, you put your hand up, and Patricia, you wanted to say something, so let's go.
I totally agree with your idea of nationalism being a negative thing. The only thing that springs to mind is the use of nationalism in the Second World War, when it was like like Shakespeare, us little Ireland against the Nazi hordes and that sort of thing. Okay, it was overplayed, but it was there for a reason, and in that sense, it's the whole debate around Churchill. I mean, Churchill was not very nice, to understand. I don't want to swear, but at the same time, Hitler was a thug, and Churchill was a thug, and perhaps it took a thug to beat a thug. And to use all these attributes like nationalism at a time when the world was being threatened by fascism was probably, on my scale, above the 50%. Not much, but above the 50%. So that's the only time I can point to nationalism almost being a positive aspect. But other than that, no.
You're agreeing. Basically.
But it's what's happening with Brexit now. Basically, you can see the resurgence of.
Yeah, it's also a nationalist. Yeah, it's all of these are expression of nation. Being proud of a particular nation. Nothing to do with the culture, because people in Britain have different cultures completely.
Okay, well,
so what is it that nationalism is actually? What are you proud of as a nation?
I mean, is that just is that just the UK, or is that all nations?
Yeah, all nations have the same thing. I mean, as all the nations that I'm aware of, there are people who like the nation for just being a nation. I don't know what that means. What is it? Just like the flag or the land, or I mean, people haven't been to all of the land. How do they know what the land is? How do they like it? People don't know all the people or all the cultures in the land. They don't, I just don't. It's such an abstract.
No, but it goes with the notion of property. It goes with the notions of basically protecting your property and protecting where you're living. Making sure that basically you will perpetuate your living and make your 10 years ahead secure.
I just want to say to Joel, because you've only come in a bit later, we came up with this idea.
You covered it.
No, we came up with this idea of matriotism.
Oh, okay.
Which is somehow a kind of more global, more cultural version of patriotism.
Matriotism. Right. Yeah, that's.
I also want to ask from the Welsh perspective, because we've got Bryony dialing in from Wales. Is nationalism seen as this kind of negative, as what you're not kind of thing, or is it different for Welsh people? I know you've got a complicated relationship with Welshness, but I mean, for the Welsh people.
I'm not sure. I feel like a beginner student of Welshness. I think there's this ethnobotanist called Wade Davis, who's a National Geographic explorer. He wrote this amazing book called Light at the Edge of the World, which was kind of a study of vanishing cultures. And he's kind of, in that book, he's kind of really valuing cultural particularity like where you are a people of a place with rituals and songs and dances and ways of being that aren't like people 100 miles away or 1,000 miles away or whatever. And he's saying, look, this is all under threat, and this delicate ancient lace of ritual and belief and culture, and it's all getting taken over by kind of Walmart and the iPhone, etc. Which does have this kind of lonely, meaningless, mushy quality to it potentially, and this like exciting, I can travel anywhere, I can do anything, I can live anywhere, I can be anyone, has this like massive range of potentiality, but also is it a bit hollow?
Is it? I mean, it strikes me as a kind of defensive thing, the nationalism thing. But hang on a sec, Bryony, because Katie's, you've got your hand up, so.
Thank you. It just seems that patriotism is kind of very often used in defense of the place's culture, from what I hear. Because a lot of people associated with a cultural thing that, okay, my culture is under threat. See, these foreigners are coming in, and this culture is going to change. How will I be able to lead my life as I did before? It sounds something like that. However, when I try to think about cultures in general, I think the only consistent thing about them is change. They have changed throughout the years, throughout the history. We don't have a single culture that has stayed the same ever.
Yeah.
So resisting the change is kind of resisting the whole principle of how life goes. Okay. And I find it kind of confusing. It no wonder causes a lot of conflict, because some people will not see even the point in fighting for sustaining the same as before, because it will never be better. And there are others who would that as before accept as good enough, and they don't want anything else. And they resist the change. They just try to keep it as long as possible.
So in a way, it's the people that are currently happy are the ones that are resistant to change.
Yeah, I think it's more common thing. Like people who are happy with the country's culture, they're much less likely to go somewhere else, which in turn is much less likely that they will discover new cultures and learn to be more open-minded.
Okay, we've got a lot of hands up after this one. I'm going to come to Evie because I've got my back to Evie the whole time. But I've noted Patricia, noted Kane. Well, there's a lot of people wanting to talk. Evie?
I think this would probably maybe in response to both what Katie and Joel were saying, but I was reading a recipe book because I really like reading recipe books just to relax. But I came across this quote, which is someone saying patriotism is the food you remember at your childhood table.
Right.
And I thought that was quite good to understanding what it is when people especially feel fondly about patriotism, because it's kind of partly nostalgia, it's partly comfort, it's partly what you know, which can kind of give it like a veneer of, you can be a bit more sympathetic to it, because I think sometimes it comes with quite a lot of negative ideas, or we see patriotism as quite negative, but also sometimes why it's quite futile, a bit like what Katie was saying, it's quite futile to uphold, because it's all about nostalgia, it's all about trying to remember it's all about memories that you've kind of glazed over in the rose-tinted glasses. So maybe we can be more sympathetic to it, but I think Katie's right about it's always in constant change, and we're always going to look back on things maybe nostalgically.
I mean, my mum was not such a good cook, so I don't look back on my
Your father might have been cooking.
Yeah, well, that is true.
Crisps, salt and vinegar crisps.
Margot.
I want to come back. What was it? No, but it's very difficult. Anyway, I just wanted to say that this idea of somebody hanging on a certainty that is for identity or mission or to do. And this is my very personal point of view. I think there is an aspect of laziness. Embracing life is quite hard work.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier to be lazy and rely on those very set values, so you know who you are, what you have to do, and the color, everything is sorted. So I'm not sure if what I say is right, but I feel like you're a bit better off to get away from this nationalism
president or something. That's my point.
Is it a bit lazy from those? We kind of like address this whole, we called it Take Back Control Talkaoke to try and bring in some of those nationalists and patriots, but I don't know if we succeeded that much. Judging by the conversation, I sort of feel that, go on.
I wanted to, I know we were talking a lot about Brexit and patriotism and nationalism and saying that they kind of all go hand in hand. And I feel that maybe that might be part of the problem of where we are now, because I think lots of people voted for Brexit and voted yes, not necessarily because they also buy in that I don't like immigrants or I don't like traveling anywhere and I just like eating food in Britain, but it was being part of what seemed like a big meaningless bureaucracy, like, oh, we're only allowed to buy straight bananas, or whether that's true, I think is a different thing. But people were getting frustrated about being part of a very big, complicated, slow rule system, which they didn't always agree with.
Define a straight banana.
Yeah, exactly. For people who wanted to define what the straight banana was. So I think it's dangerous. Like at the moment, there we go. But at the moment, when we talk about people, so when you talk about Brexit, people are like, oh, Brexiteers, oh, they're all nationalists, and then they tend to also assume they're all anti-vaxxers, they're all this, they're all that, and that might be part of the reason why we end up sort of kind of pushing ourselves apart, like two same magnets or something.
I just want to come in on some of the points that Katie's made, because you've put loads of stuff in the chat that we've just been ignoring all the way through, from live for something than die for something.
Good one.
So many things, cultural different, dismiss people of the same country with cultural differences. So many things, Katie, and I don't want to just, we are reading all of this stuff, and it's maybe time to just throw this into the main chat, because the last point, it seems that patriotism and nationalism are great tools to control people. Maybe you want to say a little bit about that. I'll come to you in a second, Margot, but let's just go to Katie and then we'll come back. We were going to go to Kane, but he looks like he disappeared, leaving just... Yeah, go on, Katie. Katie, explain this. Tools to control people. How are you controlling people?
No, just as in a Brexit example, thanks for it. It's like, if you convince people that voting one way or another is a patriotic thing to do, even if people disagree with most of the things that they are signing up for, they will sign up anyway, because they will be able to tell others, you know, I did a patriotic thing. I sacrificed my beliefs for my country. And I mean, you can twist anything with this concept any way you want. And so long as the government is doing it, they have the authority to say that whatever we say is a patriotic thing to do because we represent the country, and then the rest of the country, the whole, will become puppets. Because, I mean, yes, some of them may agree with it, but those who do not may still go for it.
It's a great way of getting people to do something against their own self-interest, in a way.
Yes, and if they do it long enough, they'll get used to it, and then they will decide that that's their way of life.
Okay.
Yeah, that's laziness.
Let's come to Margot.
I slightly disagree. I think patriotism is, I'm kind of drawing on what you were saying, Evie, and it is to, and I want to bring it back to the economic, you know, the having of something and building your life. I think life is full of so many uncertainties that you want to know something for sure, and I think patriotism, or like, you know, or identity or affiliation with your country or your religion gives you that kind of certainty, because it's not ephemeral. It's more kind of, you know, you can see the state, you can see a country, you're living in it. That is, you know, there's a weight behind it, and then basically what I'm trying to say also, when people are trying to bring up their families and that kind of stuff, because like patriotism is imbued in like family values and like having a family and that kind of stuff. I think if you're spending your life, years of your life, bringing up your family, educating yourself in that country, building a house and buying a bigger house and doing all those things locally, you may hate your country, but you've invested so many frigging years in it. you just want some returns. Do you know what I mean? You want to know that that wasn't for nothing. I think we as people like to know that we're not doing things in vain. I live here today, I live there tomorrow, I believe in this today. You know, we want some certainty, we want, I want to know that what I'm doing makes sense. And I think religion and national values, they really give you that. It's very tangible. Yes, you're doing well, you've got a husband and 3 children. Well done. Yes.
Just while we've got that round of applause, I'm going to we are keeping this moving, keeping this dynamic. The only constant is change itself, and we're going to actually change, we're going to change the patriarch to the matriarch. I'm going to get out of the table. Evie's going to have a go in the middle of the table. I'm just going to move your beer here so it doesn't get kicked around. So let's have a big round of applause for Evie. This is also a bit of an experiment. We've never done this halfway through a show before. We'll give it a go.
Where that camera goes, as you get over. Watch for what? We don't want any strange angles.
No, I've done this a million times before. Keep the legs together, spin around. We're all good.
Okay. Last time this happened, the table and tip.
There you go. The key is to go onto one of the columns of the talkaoke table. So there we go. I need to take back control of my height, I think. There we go. How are we doing? So you can slightly see me now. I'm in the middle of a giant hand. Lovely. We've got Natalie here in the studio. This is my keys, or is this mine? This is mine. It's fallen over. This is my little mic pack. I'm just going to pop on. If anyone hasn't already met me, I'm Evie, which is like Ellie, but it rhymes with a V instead. And we've been talking about quite a lot of things today, haven't we? We've been talking about change. We've been talking about matriarchy versus patriarchy versus patriotism. We're talking about whether you would die for your country or for London or for anything else particularly. So where are we going to take this, guys? We've got a new host. Maybe you want to take it into a completely different direction. I'm going to move to Mikey, who you might be able to hear but not be able to see.
I can just lean in a little bit.
Oh, there we go. No, you can see him.
Well, I mean, part of the sort of kind of pleasure of being on the outside of the table is you can sort of suddenly put all your own opinions in. And this is a while back now, but I feel like I've been desperate to say it because I wanted to talk about the British Museum. It's full of plundered cultural artifacts from all around the world. But to me, that is what the culture of Britain is exactly that, plundered cultural artifacts. We are the world's leaders in plundered cultural artifacts. And if you take away all that, if you give all of those things back, we're left with nothing.
Okay, so you think
nothing.
The history of Britain is to be plunderers, so if we take them away from the British Museum, we're going to forget about that. Is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? Are we going to forget? Have we got any response? Ian?
It's nice to be known as the world's greatest fence, isn't it? We deal in stolen goods, and that's why we have so many little markets. Because you can't go down Petticoat Lane without somebody saying, like, oh, do you want to hold a mummy from Egypt here, or would you like something? No, I mean, the thing about having all these artifacts from around the world is wrong. If we were to get rid of them, we would still have a culture of our own. We'd still have a civil war. We'd still have, I mean, the war in that sense, but we'll still have the masses rising. We still have Peterloo. We still have things like that, and that would be our culture, perhaps. Perhaps the whole thing about Brexit is that we're looking for a new beginning somewhere, and we like to think of ourselves as a kind of individual country in the world. We're a little island, and we can do all our own, which is absolute rubbish nowadays. So the idea that we have all this culture in this country overlooks the real culture of this country. People that actually live in it. I've got nothing in common with an Egyptian mummy. I didn't grow up in Elwell Street with my mother coming out and walking in a very Egyptian style and telling me that I was going to rule most of the Nile. It doesn't actually apply to my life at all.
You're in denial.
It's not marked.
Totally silent. Last game. No, it has no bearing on my life whatsoever. I went to see the Tutankhamun exhibition when it came over in the 70s. and it was wonderful. Then it went back to Europe. I got what I got from it, and then not Europe, went back to Egypt, so where it belongs. So I could see that. That's 76, but I could see that, and that was fine. So the real culture of this country lies within the people, and the increasing diversity is just the cherry on that particular cake.
Ah, okay, so it's about the people, not the objects. So we should be keeping them in Britain. Natalie, you had sort of a response to that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think to say that Britain's culture is what it's stolen over the years is a bit sad, really. And I you know, if we got rid of those in Britain, had no culture, then you kind of think, what have we actually done? I think, you know, that's part of the UK's history, but it's not necessarily something to be celebrated, and that's why a lot of people hate the word patriotism negatively, automatically, I think. I also have something, I don't know what the point is here, but I was just thinking about one of my friends who, so I was born and bred in the UK. I know that I'm somewhat from Jamaica, but I don't know too much about that. Probably from Africa as well, don't know too much about that. So I feel British first more than anything. But I have a friend who is very strongly connected to her Pakistani and Afghani roots. And she was born in the UK as well, grew up in the UK, but because of the sort of tensions that have gone on between the UK and her countries of origin, she struggles to really embrace British culture, I think, because she feels that they've done a disservice to her, and so she's really in the process of like learning her original language and things like that. And I guess it's interesting. I think Ian said something about Indian soldiers fighting in the war but then being sent off and not accepted as British. I think patriotism is kind of, maybe it only serves a certain type of person, and is almost less about what you do, but maybe just how you look.
Interesting. Okay, there are lots of really good points there. Have we got anyone who maybe wants to respond online? We're thinking about maybe you become more patriotic when you've got maybe a tension if you belong to two countries. Maybe it's more about how you look rather than the person. Let's have like anyone, maybe there we go, Bryony, respond over there.
I'm a bit afraid to speak because it's like you might open up a can of worms.
We like that here. You've got lots of other people to respond if they disagree.
A lot of worm eaters in the room.
I feel that on the one hand, patriotism is about creating an us and them, and creating others, creating an in-group identity that's partly defined in relation to others. And I feel that's quite dangerous in today's world. We can put others beneath us. They can grow our food or sew our clothes or have their water run out because of our flying or whatever. Whereas, yeah, maybe like we've kind of used matriotism. We haven't really defined it, but maybe matriotism would be like our heart big enough to hold the whole world in it and see us as like members of humanity living on planet Earth. And being able to care for all of that. So maybe that's one thing. And rather than being like us and we're better than, or us and, because if we create us, then what of them? And they easily become less than, or the enemy, or the threat, or the danger, or the faceless, or they can become all sorts of things.
So as much as you want to use patriotism to define who you are, you're always defining someone else at the same time. I think, Mikey, you wanted to respond to that.
Well, I might be going a bit off the subject here, but I found it very upsetting, some of the sort of responses to the asylum seekers coming over on little tiny boats, some of them drowning in the channel, and the lack of compassion for these people that are fleeing war zones and environmentally destroyed areas, etc., mostly created by our, at least the Western government. And I found it very upsetting that there was a lot of commentary saying, oh, you know, that's absolutely great that if they drown in the channel, because it's, you know, in a way, what I guess what I'm worried about is that if we sort of say, oh, we're not patriotic, or we're not this, that we're, you know, we're letting patriotism mean this kind of heartlessness rather than having a big heart.
Anyone want to respond to that? So are we letting patriotism become really cold and hard, or maybe almost combative as well? Joel, you've taken your mic off.
Yeah. So I was brought up in Israel. I was born in Israel, which is a very patriotic country, and patriotism is taught in school as a kind of as a virtue, and it's not seen as something heartless at all. And it's something that fills a lot of people with a lot of you know, a lot of good emotions and a lot of camaraderie, and you know, generally I don't have such a scathing view of it, but what the problem is what people do with it. So people, so that's that's when you get people saying, oh, when they see it as an ownership thing, when they become greedy, and I think it's like having a toy and not wanting to share it. It's the same thing, and I think that's when the kind of when you get people, you know, cheering when migrants drown in the channel, and that's when you get all the cold-heartedness that comes out of it, as well as not wanting any foreigners, not wanting any, you know, the patriotism that I get from the Israeli upbringing is that of the land, as the beauty of the land, you know, and yeah, and that land is obviously, you know, drenched in blood as well, and that's something that's hard to ignore, obviously. So I suppose it's how you approach patriotism. You know, what do you need from it? What does it give you as a person?
I think those are some really good, those are really interesting points, and especially about whether you share it with new people maybe who are coming to your country. Also the idea of patriotism being linked to land as well, because I think that's something that we haven't really picked up on. We've talked about culture a lot, we've talked about food, but we haven't actually talked about the kind of really the geographical area and maybe nature. And does that inspire anyone? Does that make Katie? You've got your hand up.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and I believe I was chatting online with Patricia in the chat, and she also mentioned land aspects of it. But I find it a little bit curious that people are okay to think of their country, even if they own a tiny part of it, where their house is, they consider, you know, this is my country, but it's very hard to convince them to say, this is my planet. Like, you know, it's very easy to say the person living in my country should be helped, but another person living in the same planet should not. And this I find a little bit confusing, because how do we define which is the correct size, which is the correct unit of measurement for patriotism? Because like if we, as long as we imagined, you know, like in 15th century that our planet is the whole universe, okay, fair enough, I agree with that. But now we know for a fact, and many people who investigate knew it for the last 7 decades, that that's not the case. So we have our planet, we have no clue what's beyond that. And something is definitely there. Yet at the same time, people are still, you know, fighting with their neighbors on the galactic scale.
I like that as a point. So are you trying to say almost that you want to harness the power of patriotism and maybe blow it up and try?
Just lift it up at least a size. I mean, if we can't fit a universe in our head, I mean, at least a galaxy.
Well, I think I did maybe have a point over here from Mikey. I'm not sure if it disappeared. Patricia.
Yes.
Oh, a final thought. Thank you.
I have to leave this lovely gathering, and yeah, my final thought is, I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, and I think there is much to talk, to get in depth, and I'm glad. Yeah, I think this is just the beginning of something. So it would be nice to carry on this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for taking part. A round of round of applause and a well done. So you got double. Fantastic. So thank you very much, Patricia, for applying all your views to today's discussion about patriotism. We've talked a little bit about land. Goodbye.
Aren't we going to have the national anthem?
Oh, if only there was we're lacking a button here, a sound effect for a national anthem. I can give you a bird song, but that's about it. Oh, a pigeon song. There you go. Mikey, on that note.
On the national anthem thing, I sort of feel that the national anthem should be, just hit the stop button.
There we go.
The national anthem should be Bohemian Rhapsody.
Why? Can you explain a bit more why?
Because I think it's something that in Britain we should be very proud of. Interestingly, written by a guy who was born in Bombay, of Persian parents, who grew up in Zanzibar and then moved to London. And he was a gay man who at the time couldn't publicly declare his sexuality. But the band was called Queen, so read into what you want. But I think it's just a great work of art, and it just goes to show the kind of complexity of a country and all the different things going on. But I sort of feel Bohemia obviously is part of the Czech Republic, but I feel that Bohemian Rhapsody, the great thing about Bohemian Rhapsody as well is that it takes a lot longer for the game to begin because it's a 9-minute song. But I just think it would work really well as a national anthem.
So maybe Queen is actually the ultimate patriotic band. That's quite a nice thought. Ian in the studio.
I think they're very patriotic. They have Sin City in South Africa. I think that the Royals have got a lot of connections with the apartheid regime. So yeah, if you want to go down the Royal route, that's fine. I would advocate Jerusalem, which actually talks about dark satanic mills. And as a good working class lad, that's why it was sung at my wedding. So there you go. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, I say.
So at the moment we've got as patriotic songs that maybe we like. We've got Bohemian Rhapsody for its multiculturalism and lots of other, I think, things that it represents. You've got Jerusalem maybe for representing working class people and struggles. Margot.
I just want to say, because you were talking about Freddie Mercury, British guy who wasn't that British in the end.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, I think the national anthem would have to be written and presented by somebody who is like the ideal embodiment of what the aspiration of the nation should look like or should aspire to. And I think a mongrel background gay guy would not, I'd like it that way, but it just, you have to ask a wider question about, what is the country's aspiration?
Oh, okay, so it may be Queen wouldn't win that running because it wouldn't hit the aspirations of enough people. I think we're going to go online because we've had a few in-studio people, and then we'll go to Mikey because I know he wants to defend Queen as the ideal national anthem. But Kane, first of all, you had your hand up.
I guess sort of answering Margot's question, does that mean that you're sort of left with either sort of Ed Sheeran or Michael Bublé?
No, Ed Sheeran probably more.
Could you have Ed Sheeran doing a cover of Bohemian Rhapsody? Would that sort of work? Would that be suitable enough?
Margot says no. Maybe we want to find out more, but before we do so, I'm going to go to Mikey because he wants to defend his band.
No, I just want to try and get some support from Katie for the interplanetary thing because he's Freddie Mercury.
Ah.
So, it's not just planet Earth, but also incorporating other planets as well.
Katie, are you persuaded?
For multiplanetary, I think I would go for David Bowie. Probably.
There you go. Okay, so maybe David Bowie. Is he as patriotic, though? I think, Margot, you had a point that you wanted to defend about Queen. Well, for anyone who's new joining, I think possibly Billy is joining us. So hello, Billy. Welcome from wherever you're coming from. We've been talking about patriotism tonight. So we've been talking about, I think at the moment we're talking about what would the ideal national anthem be. So Mikey over here would like Queen to be Bohemian Rhapsody specifically, because he thinks that maybe Freddie Mercury represents a lot that is good and that we'd like to celebrate in the UK. We had Jerusalem over here from Ian. I want to know, does anyone else think of any good new possible anthems that we'd want to?
I really like the. I think Joe was before me. He even unmuted himself. Go, Joe.
Oh, all right. Now, I was just going to say, I think a national anthem is bogus anyway, but I think if it was, I think the most patriotic thing would be Anarchy in the UK, the Sex Pistols. I think that's the most patriotic song.
Okay, Anarchy in the UK.
Coming one day, maybe.
Okay, but do we want Margot over here?
I really think the national anthems should be changed like with times and like the people. So I think, I can't remember which country fairly recently in the past 10 years have just changed the national anthem, like the lyrics, because they're just too boring. I think it may have been Switzerland actually. Anyway, make of that what you will. But I really think that Ed Sheeran would be the representation of, you know, I don't think it's a bad idea to commission Ed Sheeran to write about something that, you know, that's popular, that is relatable, and has got international reach. And love and having girlfriends, boyfriends is just such a big thing. I mean, we all experience that. So yeah, why not?
Do people agree that Ed Sheeran is the correct representative for a new British anthem? Kane, I think I'm going to go here first. He's got his hands up. Yes, tell us.
I'll less comment on the Ed Sheeran thing because I think I put it out there in the first place. There's two thoughts running through my head. Firstly, like I quite like this planetary thing. I wonder whether with the United States they could be looking at, you know, either Beastie Boys Intergalactic Planetarium or even Outcast, which has this kind of neo-futurist, Afrofuturist space vibe going on anyway, and it feels appropriate to appropriate hip hop into their national anthem. But I also was wondering whether there is, maybe we're sort of moving towards a model where there is a kind of global Eurovision every 5 years, where all the countries present their new versions of their national anthems. And I guess you vote on the best, but there's going to be the whole qualifying round where the countries sort of go through, you know, Michael Bublé's version, Ed Sheeran's version. Yeah, that could be quite good.
Okay, so maybe we can get, I like this concept of Eurovision National Anthem. That sort of tickles my fancy. I don't know any of the people we can't see at the moment. I've got Mikey over here on my right, but just before I go to him, Milda or Billy, do either of you have any points that you want to chip in? Hello, Billy.
Hi. I don't have a suggestion for a national anthem, but what is everyone's favourite national anthem?
Okay, brilliant.
I like the Welsh one because they sing with such passion that even I get emotional when I hear it at like a rugby game or at any public event.
We actually have a Welsh person on the Talkaoke chat. So, Bryony, do you agree with Billy? Do you feel emotional when you sing the Welsh national anthem?
I'm not Welsh. That's the issue.
Okay, so you live in Wales, but you are not Welsh.
Yeah, I'm a sort of foreigner immigrant here. I love the Welsh national anthem because the passion and the Welsh MPs like sing it in Parliament in like beautiful voice, and it's great.
Yeah, brilliant. Mikey over here.
Just to tie things up, I think we should be talking about a planetary anthem, not a national anthem.
Okay.
It's not a solar system anthem to incorporate the life in Venus. I think we need a planetary anthem, and that way only one person could, only one anthem would be sung at all games and it would be the same one.
What language would that be?
I have an idea for that. I think.
Okay, Joel, I'm going to go for you first, and then.
I think the interplanetary national anthem should just be the sound of the waves, and that should be just playing in every just like that for 5 minutes, or maybe even 10. That's it, to let people just kind of relax into it, and then not going to like but more like just okay. And I think that would be the
I
best.
love you all.
That's it.
I think that's a very nice idea, Joel. I've got Ian in the corner who also wants to maybe chip in about these national anthems, maybe these planetary anthems, maybe these intergalactic anthems. We're sort of expanding it further and further. Ian.
Indeed, yes. The French national anthem, you've got to love the French national anthem. It's got gusto and verve about it. You can, however, the Internationale.
The International, sorry?
The Internationale.
Mm-hmm. I might have to interrupt here that there are 2 rules for Talkaoke. I can't remember the first one, but there's no fighting, no singing. So we've got Natalie over in the corner here. You had some points as well.
Yeah, I like the idea. I'm all for this idea that there are no races except the one race, the human race. And then I guess now that we've potentially found aliens on Venus, we have to include them as well. So
the Vesuvians?
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 Oh, for Venus dwellers.
Yeah. Venus dwellers, thank you. Yeah.
They don't like that, you know. They don't like that name. Okay, that's a real insult. You need to think about what they're calling because they've had a hard time on Venus.
But yeah, I think for a intergalactic national anthem, kind of what I don't know who said about the waves, sampling different things from different planets would be cool. Like on SoundCloud, NASA has I don't know if it's a podcast, but they just upload periodically and I get the notification and it will be like radio waves from from Earth's moon, and just little noises, and yeah, that would be cool.
Great. So if we're going to have a national anthem or an intergalactic anthem, we should take the things from our galaxy and sort of turn it into that. Margot, you've been waiting to say something.
I just want to say that I disagree with just the instrumental and national anthem. And the reason being is like when people come together, I think when they sing together, there's something like quite powerful that happens. Like for starters, you can try to sound like pigeons or waves or forest, but good luck to you. Thank you. But I think when we sing, it just kind of really does something like physical to us. And it really kind of stirs up emotion. So maybe lyrics is not that, lyrics are not that important, but I think producing a sound is very important. I always get emotional when I hear people sing national anthems. They're mostly Polish, of course. And church songs, but yeah, there you go.
Okay, Mikey, do you get emotional when you listen to church songs?
No, and in a way, I went to the World Cup in South Africa in 2010, and I was kind of embarrassed already by the British, or the English, I shouldn't say, call them British, English football supporters already. They were singing songs which were mostly about really tasteless songs about the Second World War. Where it was an England versus Germany game in which Germany won 4-1. But it was almost embarrassing to be an English person there because, everything was all referencing the war as if war and football games could be equated. And then the national anthem came on, which is all about God Save the Queen. And, of all of those words, it's only kind of save and the that I can really put my kind of heart behind. So, it's just, I felt a bit sort of stuck. Well, obviously I wanted England to win and I felt very passionate about England winning the game, but I was not at all passionate about the national anthem or my British English compatriots.
Just to maybe dig a little bit deeper, we've got some new people joined as well. We've got Elliot over there. I'm just going to, before we go to you, Elliot, I'm just thinking maybe, Michael, what made you want England to win, even if you were maybe annoyed at your English supporter friends?
I don't know, it might have been the players that I come to know. So some players from my football club that I support, West Ham, playing that day. One of them scored a goal, actually, funny enough.
There we go. Well done, West Ham. Don't know if anyone else is offended by that.
And another former player from that club should have scored a goal. But anyway, we're going into details here. But I've been following England all my life and getting excited in the pub when they you know, when they do well, as I did in the last World Cup in 2018, it was amazing to actually be there in this kind of like international phenomenon. But I really felt uncomfortable with the behaviour of the English fans and the national anthem.
Okay, so maybe being patriotic can come with some like confusing emotions. We've been talking about national anthems and whether we should expand that to a planetary anthem so we can represent all people. We've been talking about football. Interesting, has come up a few times. Brexit has come up. Elliot, this might be a soon time to, like maybe a bit soon to throw you in, but have you got any thoughts about patriotism? Are you patriotic to your country, to a national anthem? Tell us what you think.
Yeah, I'd say I definitely am, but I'm not like waving the flag. I wouldn't say I'm not like that.
So what's the difference, do you think, for being patriotic but not waving like a British flag? Like, what's the flag got that is like too much for you?
I don't know. I kind of find it a bit cheesy. I feel like the Americans, I feel like Americans are very patriotic, and I can kind of understand that. But like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a bit. I don't know. I'm just kind of like, yeah, enjoy it. If you like it, you like it. I'm proud of our history and stuff, but I'm not like there on the balcony or whatever.
Okay, so you might like your history, but you might not want to. It might be a bit embarrassing to display it. I think Kay,
Yeah,
you
maybe.
Kay, did you have a response to that?
I guess it's sort of more of a response to Mikey of just so you know. I know that there's something really exhilarating about watching your football team compete at the World Cup. Oh no! Oh yeah, I'm muted now. But there's something really exciting about watching your sports team compete at the World Cup, and that kind of feeling of togetherness, which often feels like it kind of cuts across cultures and groups. And I guess I'm just interested, is there something else that we could be doing, that, you know, some other kind of competition that maybe is not sports based that could elicit that feeling of togetherness, that patriotism, but maybe positive patriotism?
Okay, so maybe football actually gives us a lot of positive patriotism, which we lack a lot in the rest of the everyday world. Ian?
I think the sport for me that actually displays that kind of thing is cricket. I can, one of my biggest threats is not seeing the famous West Indian cricket team with Viv Richards and other such wonderful players. I support England, but when somebody goes out and scores 150 runs against you, then you appreciate that. It's not a kind of question where somebody scores a goal against you and you call them all the names under the sun and call them lucky. This is skill. Other countries display skill against your team, and you appreciate that for the people that they are. And I would advocate cricket if it wasn't such a middle-class, upper-class, fancy sport.
Okay, so you think cricket actually is quite a good... And what makes you not wanting to promote it because it's a middle-class sport? Like, where's the tension there for you?
As a good working-class lad, if you've ever been to Lord's on Saturday of the Test, you will know how almost segregated it can be. You know, if you've got the right ticket at the right place, you can't go near the long room, and it's all this sort of thing. And women, I mean, what are women doing there, for God's sake? You know, it's that kind of thing. That's the attitude that they
okay.
not my attitude. So yeah, it's one of my guilty pleasures that I have been to Lord's in the Test match, and I have eaten salmon and whatever sandwiches on the behind the Gabby Hayes, stand. I love my cricket.
Okay, so we like cricket. So maybe there are some parallels. Ian likes cricket, but he thinks that there's some baggage with it, but it presents a lot of patriotism. Mikey maybe had the same point with football, that he likes a lot of football, the things that it brings, the pride that it brings. But again, it came with a lot of baggage. I don't know does anyone else find this with sport? Does anyone else find this with other activities? Maybe we can expand this maybe to music or, I don't know, films or something. Margot?
I just kind of want to... I was just wondering whether people ever had some kind of like an emotional response to something which wasn't like about them. What I mean by that is like I often get really moved. Like it's involuntary actually. I just get moved when I listen to like something that I know the symbolism of, you know, national anthem, and there's some things that I disagree with and all that kind of stuff. But there's something that is just very kind of like some kind of basic instinct or something that makes me connect emotionally immediately to the tone, to something, and I just, I find like national kind of like celebrations or inaugurations, that kind of stuff, like Olympics opening, that kind of stuff. I just find them really emotional. It doesn't matter which country, and I think it's some kind of like emotional manipulation going on there. I don't know, which is conscious. That's why we have these anthems. So it doesn't matter what the actual words are. I think it's some kind of like tapping into our human reactions. I don't know, something like that. I mean, do people cry when they hear national anthems, or they go to like national celebrations? Are you completely cold? You just cry when you like break up with someone? I don't know.
I like the idea of an Olympic opening ceremony as emotional manipulation. Do you guys agree? Is that how it makes you feel? Mikey, you had a point over here.
Well, I mean, for me, none of this national stuff makes me cry or makes me emotional at all. But the Olympics does make me emotional. It's more like, it doesn't matter what country they've come from, but, when you see someone that's worked so hard to become the best at a certain sport, and it doesn't matter what that sport is, it could be like shooting, it could be curling, it could be like, this synchronized swimming, diving, but you see the effort these people put in, and then they're like, they either win or they lose, and to me it's so emotional, and I do get sucked into it. I can't help it. I just get really, and often I start crying in the Olympics, I have to say, because when someone wins, you can see like they've kind of achieved this goal. I mean, in a way, it's all pointless, but they achieve this goal.
It's all pointless. You built it up so much
Ian.
and you said it was all pointless.
Yeah, well, it is pointless, isn't it? I mean, it's just like a goal. I'm the fastest cyclist. So what?
Okay, so we've got that. We've got sport is pointless, but it's patriotic and it's emotional. Ian.
Just one point. I would suggest that that's the only true meritocracy that is in the world.
Okay, so when you say meritocracy, like, just explain a little bit more what you mean by that.
It's the only activity, function of human life where you get to the top by your own abilities, regardless of who you know and what you know. If you can run the fastest, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, you should get to the top. So I would advocate that it is the only true meritocracy in the world.
Does everyone agree with this? Maybe some of the people online, do you agree that sport is a true meritocracy of the world, that it is always fair, it's always going to allow you to get to the top? Katie in the corner, you're in my corner, so I'm going to say Katie in the corner, you go.
Thank you. I think it should be a meritocracy, but not in today's world, no. It should and it could, but I mean, just looking at some countries without naming them, like in 2012 Olympics and before, I mean, how many medals have been cancelled and so on? So, and they got support from governments and so on just for the sake of a name or that we achieved something. And later if it gets cancelled, nobody knows about it and no one cares. So again, it could and should be probably something really beautiful, but I mean, just like many things on this planet, I guess we turn into something worse given the time.
Oh dear. Oh, sorry, that was much louder than I thought it was going to be. Like many things in this life, even my sound booth is worse than I thought it was going to be sometimes. It's got bad sides to it. Okay, so, maybe Katie disagrees. It's a meritocracy. We've got so many things here. We've got sport, we've got patriotism, we've got music, we've got emotions. Where are we going to go from here? I've got Mike on my side. Anyone in the online world want to either add to what we've been talking about already, or maybe want to take this discussion in just a new direction? I'm going to go to Mikey on my right.
Okay, isn't Kane got his
Oh,
hand?
sorry.
Yeah, he's gone now.
No, Katie, you about to turn your microphone back on?
Yeah, I just thought that while we spoke about what patriotism is or what we think it is, maybe we could try to figure out what it should be and why. Because as we have like really many great ideas, views are very different. But my question would be, where could and should they all merge? What kind of patriotism could be, more universal without alienating someone else?
Okay, so we're going to try. remake a new version of patriotism? Maybe it's more universal, it's more inclusive. Mikey?
Well, I mean, it comes on to the point that I always wanted to, someone talks about the heart and, you know, what you love, the love for the country. In a way, that kind of compassion I think could be the basis for a new patriotism, but it shouldn't end at the borders, the compassion, and the love for humanity should be borderless. And I think, you know, at the heart of patriotism is this question of love, which I think, you know, love for your fellow human beings, but it's in a very historical kind of nationalist frame when that love for humans could be much wider and much more global.
Natalie?
I think that's a very interesting point. I think that patriotism tries to maybe achieve certain things, and you can achieve a lot of those things either through love or through hate. And I think, again, like I said, maybe it's just the circles that I'm involved in, but I think patriotism tends to get a bit of a bad rep. And so I think that's because people are using hate rather than love to achieve these things.
Okay, so we're rewriting patriotism and we're using hate rather than love. I've got spotted Katie with a hand. Yes, Katie, you go, and then I'll move on to Kane.
Yeah, sorry, just another point to add. As we're looking into what patriotism could be, like while we talk about humans, sooner or later we will come across someone which will not be human. So what do we do then with all the love and compassion and understanding of other and empathy and all of these things? Does it end at our species? And what if there are more humans out there as well? What do we do then? Do we just separate the humans which originated on Earth in this period of time? Or like sooner or later and by the looks of it, judging by the signs, it's going to come sooner rather than later. We're going to run into these problems within the next few years. Like AI is around the corner, different life forms, definitely not carbon-based, have been found. It's like already two other kinds of something that could be considered alive, and yet we're struggling with internal compassion and like, should we draw the border? Should we discriminate other people, you know, on which basis? My land, my city, my country, my planet, and like, what is the main point? I think Margot before put that it has to do about you know, having land, having future, being certain about the future, and kind of safety feeling, I suppose. However, I mean, even in case of our planet, we know any kind of history you will read, you'll find out that species have gone extinct. I mean, we have. I mean, us being alive now, that is not any statement that extinction will not happen in the future. So, would it be easier to avoid the extinction event for our species if we're more compassionate towards life in general, or would it be better if we just preserved, you know, humans, or just our countries, or just our towns?
Okay, so that's quite a good open question to the group. Katie's maybe thinking, should we future-proof patriotism and our concepts so we expand it to all buildings because we might be extinct, or is it important to remember the humans? I know, Kane, I'll go to you next, and then I think Ian is next after you.
Yeah, I guess I'm quite interested in the, you know, this idea of a patriotism based on love rather than hate, and that actually, to what extent sort of big competitions create that environment and big sort of group celebrations, and whether there's a way maybe that we just build a kind of year-long calendar, like every day there is some sort of celebration or competition, so that we're constantly within that mindset, that we're you know, that there might be group singing within that as well, that you're constantly feeling that kind of exhilaration of being part of something together, irregardless of, you know, whether you were human or not.
Okay, so maybe it's like a feeling of actually being invited to become part of a group, or having a sense of togetherness. Ian, you maybe had some points earlier. Do you agree? Do you disagree with Kane?
It strikes me that I find it difficult to believe that there are evil people in the world. I like to believe that people that do bad things for particular reasons. and I find it, even though I know it's true, that there are evil people in the world that will do things through no apparent reasons that have harmful effects on other people, be it for profit, be it just for bloody mindedness. However, I can't conceive of anything bad that the human race has already done that will be different than a Venetian. I can't conceive that they won't be as liable to all the evil and horrible things that the human race has done. There's no such thing as an original sin, and I think that's probably an intergalactic principle. It's like trying to find another colour. Try to imagine another colour, and it's impossible. If it did, well, you know. So to try to create another form of evilness that the human race has excelled in the past, sadly, it's probably a no-goer.
So you think it's that evilness, if it does exist, is it exclusively belongs to humans, or it doesn't even exist then?
I think that it's not humans. I think that you can see animals that are just nasty to each other. You know, not just for the hunt for food. A lot of it is natural and that. But you know, it's like foxes will kill chickens not just for food, apparently. You know. And I'm sure that happens a lot within the animal kingdom. You know, it's like fear of a threat. You know, you go out and you attack something first. Doesn't mean to say that that animal is guilty. You've just entered into their domain and they don't like it. So yeah, as I say, there's no such thing as an original sin. And I'm sure, if anything, there will be less guilty than the human race.
Oh, interesting. So if we found new life, they would probably be less guilty than the human race. But at the same time, Ian thinks maybe there isn't such a thing as original sin, or that, you know, we all start off maybe in this sense of innocence. I want to hear maybe from some of the people we haven't heard from for a while. So maybe Milda, you have a point. Is it Milda? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yes, I am Milda. Actually, Katie made a good point about us as species living on this Mother Earth. And my point, as we talked before about our anthem, national anthem, in my opinion, sooner or later, we need to think about our Earth's anthem, because you don't know what it's coming up there. Maybe for 1 second, we need to forget our differences, fears, patriotism, and think about us as representatives about Earth. And doesn't matter what music you play, what sports you play, maybe it's most important part to be there for one moment, forgetting everything, all the differences, and be together as one.
Okay, so we're actually, the important thing right now is that we want to apply our patriotism to the earth itself. Mikey?
I think the global national anthem could be Earth Song by Michael Jackson.
That's already been suggested
Is
by
it?
somebody, yes.
Was I in the
Katie,
toilet?
I think, but you too.
Okay. Right.
Okay, so we have two people, Katie and Mikey have suggested Earth Song by Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is going to be the song that's going to bring us together as a planet to look after it. Billy, you have a point that you want to add on this. You might need to unmute yourself. There we go. He's going to say 1 moment. I don't know why. I might try and unmute you for... There we go. Billy, are you there?
Yeah. I would say that if they're not a more controversial musician than Michael Jackson to represent the world.
Do people agree, disagree? Is there a more do we want Michael Jackson to represent the world for us? Does it matter? I don't know. I'm in the middle, so I can't give any opinion. So maybe Mikey has got a point. Maybe David as well. You can give us a point later, but Mikey first.
I mean, we started off. I mean, a lot of the people weren't in this chat. We started off talking about the patriarchy and its relationship to patriotism, and could we have matriotism instead of patriotism, which I think is a strong idea. But you know, the question about Michael Jackson is a sort of distillation of corporate culture and its corruption as well. So I think in a way he is quite appropriate, because you know he's such a, in a way, he's been twisted by capitalism, but he's also you know a twisted individual himself, but somebody that through nevertheless created great music. You know, I mean, you look at all the other kind of, let's say, shady characters in show business, but they've all kind of been pulled off the air. But Michael Jackson, because his music is so good, he still retains a presence on the airwaves despite his now kind of shady past.
Do people agree with that? I've got Ian, you've got a point over here.
Yeah, I think Frankenstein. I think coming together of so many parts and creating a living bit being out of it, I think he's the ideal person to sing that song. Although the bulk for his note may hinder him.
How about from our online community? Do people agree, disagree? Want to add any new thoughts to that? Kane, you've got your hand up.
I guess I take issue with the fact that every single sort of world Earth anthem that we've come up with is from the Western canon, and that arguably we probably need something that cuts across cultures. Like my immediate jump was to William Onyeabor, who is Nigerian, sort of, it's almost like disco musician from the 70s, who is drawing from both the West and from Africa, and that maybe we need to find someone along those lines.
Margot, do you agree, disagree?
I disagree, because that's still popular culture, still like Western and non-Western music. But I would really like to see a commission to make an Esperanto national anthem, because then everyone's like back to square one. And we really have to invent. It's better be like bloody good and catchy. You want to listen to Waves, like, yeah, great, fine. But why not like inventing? You know, the language already exists. But why don't we all make a concerted effort to understand and find beauty in something that sounds like language that we know, but it's not exactly that. Something made up. You know, it's got all this potential that we can project onto. Yeah.
Okay, so
or Morse alphabet.
So we want to move away from popular culture. We want to represent more people. David, you're waving at me from in front of some nuts and bolts.
The Vulcan tried that famously with Star Trek. They tried to invent their own language, and they had their own like history and spiritual things and stuff like that. So. Esperanto is kind of fun. Yeah, they tried very, very hard. They tried very hard.
Star Trek is something maybe we want to look to as like a representation of intergalactic patriotism or pride. I'm going to go for Mikey and then Katie in the corner.
I'm very pleased with the Star Trek reference, and maybe the international anthem should be sung in Klingon rather than in Esperanto.
Esperanto is more popular, actually.
Esperanto might have its Indo-European basis, but I can't speak Klingon or Esperanto. But my thinking was, okay, you want to go a bit more international. I feel like Shakira's anthem, going back to the 2010 World Cup, because Shakira is someone Colombian of Lebanese origin, singing about Africa, whereas she's South American. If you go to Africa, that song is really, really popular in Africa, despite of this. And I think that would be a good international anthem. What's it called?
Is it Waka Waka?
Waka Waka Africa, yeah. Or something like that. That's a great song, and I think that could work as an international anthem.
Kane, do you agree?
I'm wondering whether there's a national anthem where every single country chooses a different sort of line. So it's a mashup of loads and loads and loads of different songs.
A sort of Glee style mashup of just all the different anthems together. That's piqued Billy's interest online. Maybe also Ian's. I'm going to go to Billy first of all.
I think it's difficult to make a song with so many different languages and give it any sort of rhythm. I think you'd have to go much simpler and just do a classical piece that speaks to everyone, maybe without lyrics. So I was thinking more like 2001 Space Odyssey. and just have something that the whole planet can listen to and feel some emotion or some sort of like wonder.
Could you add lyrics if you felt like maybe there's a lyric and a lyricless version? If you're someone that feels that they can't really get into a song without those lyrics?
Maybe the lyrics change periodically.
Billy, have you got a response to that?
A lyricless version of a song where every country has a line of lyric.
Not necessarily.
I might have to bounce Kane to explain his idea. I'm slightly confused as well. Kane, do you want to explain your idea a little bit more?
Well, I'm just thinking that you could say it was 2001: A Space Odyssey, that you could have some lyrics against that song for people that like a sing along, but that you don't have to have it if you don't want to.
That's quite interesting. So, and also maybe the sense of wonder. Maybe I want to pick up as like, do people agree with Billy that you want to have a sense of wonder for this planetary anthem? Margot,
I quite like the idea of having an anthem where there's like it's one big lyric, whatever, and every country's got their little slot, and if you miss it, then you fucked up. And then everybody's paying attention, and maybe there's some kind of random element, so you don't know when your country's going to come up. You only know they go after France or something, so you have to listen out. And maybe there's some kind of, I don't know, you go when the lights up, and you have to come in with your line, because maybe that will like actually teach us to listen. I mean, this is the arts listening channel. I mean, we're very good at like talking and just whatever, but I think maybe that would actually, we've got 2 ears, we've got 1 mouth, so I don't know, maybe it's something in that.
2 ears but 1 mouth. Ian, you had some points earlier, and then I think we did you want to come back up with anything that you're going to say?
I just wanted to say if Frank was to appeal to the humanity of the planet, then why not Billie Holiday? Somebody that can say what the thing we all seem to sadly be sharing nowadays is sadness with what's going on in the world. And if you want to relate to a basic human emotion, then it's either anger, love, or sadness, really. I would say that Billie Holiday would have a great one to unite the world in one emotion at least.
Okay, so sadness is an emotion that unites us, so maybe that should be part of the planetary anthem. We had Billy here with a sense of wonder. I think Mikey just wants to dance, but he's also got a point, so...
No, well, I just think if we're going to do like a space theme, I would go for the Star Trek themes. People have mentioned it a lot, and I think Star Trek has got this kind of globalism and this kind of internationalism. And this idea of this post-scarcity society where we don't fight each other for like food and resources because that's all been sorted, and our focus is outwards and not inwards. There's a lot to like about Star Trek, especially the original series, but that's just my point of view. I think that could be a global theme tune. It's got that. Hopefully, Billy will accept that it's got that kind of classical edge to it as well, and maybe someone could make up words to it as well. I don't know.
Katie, you have your hand up. Star Trek, yes or no? Oh, you might need to unmute yourself, Katie. If not, I...
Sorry. Thanks. Maybe I just wanted to come back to the point that even some people mention like classical music and so on. Believe me, I studied music in India. To those people, classic means totally different thing. Trust me. So I don't think there is any single song that could represent our planet, but I think it would be a better idea to have, as we spoke before, kind of a yearly event where we choose another one. And let's say the same style of music gets some kind of less probability of being chosen again. That way it would create kind of a rotation of these. And different people, different cultures, different music styles could get a chance of representation. At the same time, people wouldn't have to, you pick any one song, leave it for 10 years, but some people who don't like that style will hate it for 10 years. There's no point. If you keep it just for a year, people will have hope. Okay, I missed this year, we can try the next one.
Okay.
So it would kind of, I don't think there is any way to represent 8 billion people with a single song. I might lack imagination, but I can't put it in my head.
So the solution is we should always have this change. We should always have this sort of democratic vote. So at least if you hate one anthem, that you're going to go on to a new one. It has to represent a lot of things. Maybe it can be classical. I like Katie's point maybe about what does classical even mean. So Natalie.
Couple random points. Yeah, I agree. We're not going to find one song that suits everyone, but in the case that we do we, for those who are deaf, do they get their own segment where they sign and everyone is silent? Or do we kind of force them to sign the lyrics of their respective countries?
I don't know
that could be a problem.
Do people agree with Natalie? What do they have some suggestions for this? I think there are lots of people waving. I'm just going to have a look so I can see you all. I think Milda, you had a lot of expressions on your face as if you wanted to chip in, and then I'll go to Katie. And just, I think you might. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point, actually. Would be great, you know, Eurovision, let's admit it, it's boring already. We could, for a change, make our own. Pick a song for a year. You don't like it, you can create yours. People would have more freedom for themselves to do what you want, actually. How they imagine to representing Earth, what their choice would be. It would be more time for freedom, you know, for your imagination.
Okay, yeah, and then Katie, you wanted to respond as well.
Regarding the deaf people, I'm pretty sure that deafness and blindness are problems which will be solved in a single-digit number of years from now. They're already doing eye implants and already can read what I see and will very soon, and in some cases already can, still at low resolution, to input a video feed into people's head who are even born blind and never even seen. So I think it's one of the problems which we are accustomed to, but is going to disappear within the next few years.
I like it. Natalie, did you have any response to that?
Yeah, it's interesting that you frame deafness and blindness as problems, because I know deaf people who actually, and a lot of deaf people see themselves as a community and sort of see deafness as just a variation of humankind, sort of like being LGBT. It's not really something that a lot of people want to change, and there are a lot of people that, even if there is a sort of clear-cut like cure for deafness, they will just reject it. And still want their slot in the national, in the world anthem. So
some people might be quite patriotic and passionate about being deaf as well. Katie, do you want to respond to that? And then I do owe Mikey a response as well. So Katie first.
Thank you. Well, if they want that way, I don't see any problem. But first of all, Anthem itself is a musical thing. I mean, you can have a sculpture which will be, you know, representing our planet, and then anyone, even blind, can feel it, and deaf can see it. I mean, it's just a kind of expression. The reason why I said it's something that can be solved, I'm more talking about the part where there is a lot of art in sound. I mean, if you don't have a certain sensation, you lose ability to experience a different kind of art and beauty in the universe. So I mean, we are close to being able to augment ourselves. I mean, some people already can see ultraviolet and infrared, for example, with various brain implants. They can see electromagnetic waves which normal people can't. And I mean, some people are born with different taste buds and different cells in their eyes, which allows them to see more colors, which we couldn't imagine. For example, a mix of green and yellow. There are many kind of colors which some people can see, some people cannot, but the less you can, the narrower expression of various art forms and beauty you can experience. So I think I was making that statement under a simple assumption based on myself that I would love to have the more abilities to sense different kinds of arts, to explore how they merge together and so on, instead of lacking something. Maybe there are some sensations which we can't imagine aliens have. We'll see it and we will want to copy it. I don't know, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. But I think I'm more talking about people having ability to choose. I've read even about people who, I mean, cut their own legs because they want to wear heels and they can't with their own. I mean, there are crazy cases where people modify their bodies just for the sake of expressing themselves or experiencing something. So my point was that while now people don't have a choice whether they can or cannot experience a national anthem or a beautiful song or a beautiful show or a beautiful painting, in the very near future that will not be the case, provided we do everything right.
That's really interesting. There's lots to unpack there as well in terms of who experiences what, like do you want to change how you experience things? I was going to go to Mikey very quickly, I like it better, just to, can anyone do it?
No, hang on, let me just check. I'm going to change you to...
Okay, there we go. Swift, seamless mic check. But funny enough, actually, although Mikey has just fixed my mic, I was going to go to him because he's about to explode with lots of responses to Katie, to the room. So, Mikey.
Well, I'm just going to have to come close to you.
Oh, okay.
Speaking to your mic, but I...
Not COVID friendly.
Not very COVID friendly. No, stay.
Okay, stay.
But I just wanted to say, you know, if we're talking about the borders of countries which are now permeable, the borders of our senses are really, our real limitations is that we can only go with what we understand from our own innate senses, our touch, our feel, our sense of position, our smell, and they're the real borders that we can't escape.
Ian, do you agree?
Yeah, it just reminds me, I actually ran a tour of London Zoo for blind and visually impaired children. And what happens is that you can imagine London Zoo, you go to see animals. Now, if you're blind or visually impaired, it suggests that there's other senses that come into play. And what happens is a lot of the skins that go through illegally to London Airport are sent to London Zoo. So they have a tactile skin. You can go to a cage of a tiger, for instance. You can stroke the tiger's skin. You can smell the tiger. You can hear the tiger. In many ways, it's more pronounced than somebody who has total vision, because you only rely on your eyes to see this yellow and black thing, whereas they're actually touching it, smelling it, hearing it. So perhaps it's more enhanced, not to just use your eyes.
Oh.
Only on the matter of senses.
I like it. So now we're sort of talking, we've moved on maybe to how people experience the world, about do we spend a lot of time thinking about sight? Are there a better, or do we spend too much time thinking about sound and how we hear? Are there different ways to experience that? And I think, you know, when is it important to represent that and make it accessible to everyone? And when do we say, actually, this is one thing and this is another thing? Have we got any thoughts either from the online world? Maybe someone we haven't heard from a while. Bryony, we haven't heard from you for a while. But I also, Bryony's maybe disappeared. She might have just been a ghost there. Margot.
I think it's a really nice segue because we are kind of running out of time. We've got final 5 minutes, and I think, you know, we're talking about, to start off by talking about patriotism and nationalism, and then also now we're talking about all these different like identities, and I think you really made a really good point, Natalie. The people, you know, they have other kind of they identify themselves through, say, something that we perceive as disabilities, but that's like a strong identity thing. And I think in our next episode, when we will be talking about identity politics, I think we can carry on with some of these discussions. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the whole thing, and I really just I would love to find out what the new national anthem is. I mean, we just can't agree. It's just not possible. I don't know.
We should all write our own national anthem.
All right, so I think actually Margot might have corrected me there of saying that, well, not corrected, and noted me that we actually do only have 5 minutes left. So this would be the point in Talkaoke, whether digitally or online, where we're going to go round the table, the virtual table, to get final thoughts from people. So that could be your takeaway from tonight's discussion. It could be a new thought to maybe leave us on for next time, for our next talk, which is going to be on identity politics. So in no particular order, I might pick on Kane for your final thoughts.
I think it's been a really, really good discussion. I guess I'll leave something for next time, just around, I mean, we've been talking a lot around whether ideas of patriotism, you know, even the term patriotism is a negative word, how even terms like multiculturalism can be loaded. And I guess I'm really fascinated about the idea of populism as well, which we haven't spoken about that much, and whether populism is something that is a bad thing or something that should be celebrated. And I know this was a big part of conversations I've had with the South Bank Centre and with their artistic director before he left, of just like, actually, is there a way of reclaiming populism?
Okay, so there's a thought, maybe Molo, for next time. Is there a way to reclaim populism? Go for Milda next. Any final thoughts that you want to sum up from tonight's discussion?
Thank you very much for a great meeting. I really enjoyed it. And for final words, I think this topic should be discussed in the future. I mean, what things we understood, what we wanted to show, our thoughts to share about our national anthem. For now, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Milda, as well. I'll give you a little round of applause there. I'm going to turn to anyone in the room. Any final thoughts from the room that you want to... Natalie?
This is just a sort of weird fact on patriotism, kind of. There's an archaic law. I read this a few days ago. There's this law that basically the Queen of England is the legal guardian for all British children, and she can come and take your child at any moment, and it will be perfectly legal.
Wow, that is quite a final thought to leave us on.
She hasn't done it yet, but she could.
That we know of. That we know of. Yeah, so
I knew there was something.
perhaps Natalie is one of these children and she's now a secret royal and we don't know. Come to join us. Well, thank you very much, Natalie. That's an excellent final thought. A very strange fact. Who have I got next? I've got Billy. Have you got a final thought for us from tonight's discussion?
Yeah, I was quite interested in the discussion of sort of universal concepts, sort of the idea that we had this sort of universal commonality between humans, and that we couldn't really agree on what that was. And then when we sort of narrowed it down to compassion, we then had discussion about universality and aliens, and do aliens have compassion? And then it made me think, well, is there anything universal about the universe that everyone sort of has in common, that is, and we yet to find out. So I'm quite interested if there is like a universal truth that every species and every individual has, that sort of they can find common ground on.
Okay, so Billy's maybe taken us to a very existential moment about saying, is there anything we can actually all universally agree on? Ian, I'm going to go to you for that, for either whether you agree on this or any other final thoughts you want to contribute.
Well, my final thought is, as somebody who's unemployed, I wonder what the employment rate is on Venus. And I'm thinking, will I be able to maybe get a job if I learn a language? I could be some kind of ambassador or something. So I'll look in paper tomorrow and see what the going rate.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And I think we've got David online. A final thought in the background of this Star Trek anthem.
I don't know. Honestly, I think globality is the way forward, and basically somehow English seems to be the language of business.
Oh.
Basically somehow, yes, it seems to be like the most spoken language. Maybe Spanish might be more spoken, but basically, yeah, somehow is the way to go. Is at least finding something common where we can basically understand each other.
Okay, so David,
promoting English as a language, communal language, would be a good start.
I like it. So David's maybe leaving us on, maybe we should find a universal way of talking to each other, a universal language, and maybe that's the way forward. Have I gone for, we are going on to our final thoughts. So I think unless anyone online hasn't had their final thought yet. Katie, you have not had your final thoughts. Please enlighten us.
In response to Billy and everyone else, something I consider a universal joke.
Ooh.
What happens to hydrogen if you leave it long enough? It starts walking around asking questions about its existence.
A round of applause there. I think I like a final thought as a joke. It sort of leaves us maybe on a high, which means I'm going to move to our Talkaoke ambassadors. Margot first to leave us with your final thoughts.
I don't have a final thought per se. I think I just really enjoyed it. It's like a new format for us. Even though some things are old, but there's some things are new. And I really enjoy the kind of mixed today. But I think my final thought is also invitation to the next session, and I'm just going to very cheekily share my screen just to kind of show you what I'm banging on about. But we are here because of We're All Bats and the Listening Arts channel. So I hope you are enjoying the festival so far, but check it out. It's on we'reallbats.co.uk. You can find out all about all the other events. But our next session, which is going to be, yes, BACK CONTROL TALKAOKE, on identity politics, get real is what we say to people joining this one, is on Friday, 2nd of October, starting at 4:30. You can dip in and out, so it's up to you. But we'll be talking about maybe virtue, signaling as a new pandemic. We've gone really strong there for things. But anything that you've got to say, that's the 2nd of October, and one after that, which is going to be the last of the series, is on 16th of October, and it's going to be about living with risk and what are the real dangers these days, because I think that can be subjective as well. So yeah, thank you so much for joining. I don't have any further final thoughts.
Fantastic. So I think that leaves us to Mikey for your final thought on tonight's conversations. Obviously, you've been in the middle, you've come back in. Any final thoughts for tonight's session?
Well, I mean, I think this intergalactic approach is definitely the way ahead, and it's got to be said that like this idea of like an outward-looking world where we can. If we're going to take back control, it's control of compassion. It's control of like this more embracing sense of humanity of who we are, and this idea. I've said it. I'm going to say it again. The Matriotism. Maybe I'm certainly feeling it. We've got just a few people on this session, but I feel like we can go out to the whole world. We are going out to the whole world. We can live together as one.
Can live together as one. We actually have a very final new person who's joined us, who actually I'm afraid that we are just ending, but I don't know if Kirk, if you wanted to give us a final, your first and final thought for tonight's Talkaoke session before we play out the music, please let us know what you thought of the little bit that you have just been able to hear.
I'm really upset that I missed a lot of it. I don't know if this is actually working because this is my first time on Zoom.
We can hear you, don't worry.
Okay, good. Long time listener, first time speaker. I wish I can hear what is yet to be and so hopefully I can join in on another session.
2nd of October.
2nd of October, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm going to be there. but I just want to say Mikey has a lovely shirt. I like the background. I'm very pro the MC of the night. And Margot, I think that you don't get enough credit when you should.
Excellent. So Kirk's been very, very positive about Talkaoke on his first and final thought, which we like. So I think that on that point, we just have to play the final music. I'm looking at Mikey to see if that's the correct. There we go.
Thank you to Evie in the middle.
Thank you to me as well.
Also to Rick, who's been handling all the technical stuff tonight. To Natalie, thank you to Ian and Patricia, who joined us in the studio. And thank you to all of you, to David, Milda, Katie, Kay, Vinny, Kurt, and everyone else who joined in the meantime. So thank you, and good night. See you on the 2nd of October.
2nd October, goodbye guys. You now have to leave, otherwise this gets awkward. So we're going to just keep waving. I'm just sitting in front of giant hands. Identity politics, patriotism, nationalism. Everyone enjoys the music too much. Music. Signing. Do we need to have a new universal sign? People are leaving slowly. Fantastic. There we go. Ian's enjoying the music in the corner there. If you like Talkaoke, go to thepeoplespeak.org. You can find out all the information that we're doing there. Oh, is it .uk? Thepeoplespeak.uk. That's where you can find .org.uk. So if you want to find out more about our events, go to thepeoplespeak.org.uk. We also are on Twitter as The People Tweet. And I'm going to play the call-out music again. At this point, you do have to press leave on Zoom. Goodbye, goodbye. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to Mikey, to Margot, to Natalie, to Ian, to Rick, who's on the vigils. You really do have to press leave on your screen now. Otherwise, this makes us feel all sad. There we go. Stay alert, stay safe.